Hello, and welcome to another Kotlin tutorial. This week I'll be taking you through writing a Kotlin app that is connected to a Firebase database. Specifically this week, reading from the database. Now what this will include is setting up the database so we can read data, creating a data model to communicate with the database as well as store our data, and creating a data object that we can store our data as. After we have done that, we will then create a simple UI to display the data to the user. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to get Firebase ready. So what I have here is a newly created Firebase database. I'm going to go into Database. I'm going to click Get Started with Real-Time Database. We're going to add our data. So we're going to add a new child. It's going to be called Cake. And its value is that it's going to have some child values. So the first one we're going to add key of 1, add that. Then its first attribute is going to be called name, so the name of the cake. This one is going to be a Victoria sponge. The next value is then going to be date baked. And this will be the okay, what's going to be? It's going to be the 24th of March. Okay, and then we've got the expiry date, which is going to be the 26th of March. Okay, and then we're going to click Add. Now add our first value. So now we've got some test data. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the rules. We're going to set the read to true. This way we don't have to set up any auth system in our app, and we just want to keep it as simple as possible. So place auth is not equal to null to true. Click publish. With that, our Firebase database is ready to go. We'll get to work on the app. So the first thing we're going to have to do is get the is to basically set up the app to be able to communicate with Firebase. To do that, we're going to be going into the Gradle files. So first we're going to go into the app Gradle file and add the dependencies that are needed. So specifically, we need to add the go compile inside dependencies, compile single speech marks com.google.firebase Firebase core. And the version we're going to be using is 11.8.0. We're also going to be using compile single quote marks com.google.firebase Firebase database. And that is going to be the same type as the Firebase core, which is 11.8.0. We're also going to add the Anko common library to give our Kotlin project more functionality. So we have access to more functionality when we're coding. So compile single quote com.org.jetbrains .anko anko -common 0.8.3. Save. When you're setting up your Firebase database, it will actually take you through these steps as well. However, I'm also covering them here. So when you download your Google Services file, it will tell you where to put it inside your app, your
inside your project directory, and it's going to be here that we need to make sure it's referenced. If you do not do this, your app will crash on startup. So you go apply, plugin, colon, single quote marks, com.google.gms.google-services. And then that is everything you need for your dependencies. So we're going to save that. And we're now going to go into our project Gradle. So inside our project Gradle, all we've got to do is very simply reference the Google Services file again. Instead of using apply plugin, it's going to be class path inside our dependencies, single quote marks, com.google.gms google-services 3.2.0. Save that. And if we sync the project, Gradle project sync in progress. And there we go. Now everything is ready to go. So now we have set up the Android app to be able to communicate with our Firebase database. Now we can start coding the model of the app. Okay, with the app now set up to be able to communicate with Firebase, we're now going to go about creating the data model to make use of that connection. So what we're going to do is go into the Java project directory. We're going to right click. We're actually going to create a new package. We're going to call that model, data model. We're doing this just to make it so the project grows. We have a standardized place where we keep our data model code. Otherwise, and I can tell you from experience that as a big projects become impossibly hard to find where stuff is if you haven't got it properly organized. So in our data model, we're going to now create a new Kotlin file. It's going to be a class. It's going to be called cake. Okay. We're going to get rid of that code there. Okay. I'm going to add a few spaces in there. You will notice that for my package name is got squiggly underlines, and that's because the package name doesn't match the regex. That's not a problem. That isn't a problem. Just don't worry about those sorts of naming conventions. So what we're going to do is now we're going to create 3 variables. They're going to be latent variables. So latent var. This one we're going to call ID. It's going to be a type string. This is going to be the ID of each cake in the database. Create another latent var. It's going to be the name of the cake, which is going to be a string again. Another latent var called date baked, which is going to be a type string. If you wanted to use a timestamp here, you can. You would just make it a long instead of a string. And then we're going to create one more latent var, and we're going to call it expiry date, which is going to be of type string. Give me a bit more space. Right, we're going to now create the constructor, so init. So when cake is instantiated, this is the code that's going to be run. So inside a try catch, and in the catch it's going to be listening for just a generic exception. e.print stack trace, so that if anything fails, we know what it does. Okay, so inside the try catch, we're going to do val. So we're going to create a read-only variable. Data. It's going to be of type hash map. String to make sure we're able to pass in the data. And the data is going to be of type. It's going to be a snapshot, which is a data snapshot. Data snapshot is a Firebase specific object. It's what you actually will receive when you download data from Firebase. So go back to data. Data is going to be equal to a snapshot dot value, and we're going to cast it as a hash map string any. As hash map string any. Now this will throw up a compiler warning because it is an unchecked cast. However, this is one of the very few instances where this is not a problem because Firebase will only ever return a data snapshot. There is no instance ever where it would return anything else. So now we've got our data, we're going to now fill in our variables. So ID is going to be equal to snapshot.key. And we're going to do an Elvis operator, empty string. Now, I will go into what an Elvis operator is, as well as other more Kotlin specific features that Java doesn't have in a later video. So that will be coming, don't worry. I'm also going to create we're going to fill in name with data with the key name as string. So we're going to make sure it's cast to a string. We're going to get set date baked to equal data date baked as string, and we're going to get expiry date to equal data expiry date as string. And that is our cake object now finished. Now the only other thing we've got to do inside our data model is to actually write our model code. So in Java, it will be the equivalent of a singleton. So we're going to go new, Kotlin file. Instead of a file or a class, we're actually going to create an object. We're going to call it cake model. The reason why we're creating an object is because an object is literally the equivalent of what a singleton is in Java. See, what Kotlin does, which is very nice, is that it basically just simplifies data model creation to being basically just very simple. Because from where you had to write several odd lines of code in order to get it to work properly, Kotlin just does it for you, basically. It's really nice. Well, I will go into more detail with that in a later video. So we've got object cake model is going to be of type observable. Okay, so whenever a change happens on the cake model's cache, we want any UI field, not UI page, that makes use of that data to notice it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up a couple variables. So we're going to create a private variable called mValueDataListener. It's going to be of type ValueEventListener. However, it is going to be an optional variable, so it is a nullable variable. There is a chance it can't be null. We're also going to create another one, which is going to be our cache. Private var mCakeList, which is going to be an array list of type cake, the object we've just created. Again, it's going to be nullable. We're going to make it equal array list. So now we've got our listener and our cache now set up. So now we're going to create our first function in here. So it's going to be private fun get database ref. The reason why we're writing this is because instead of having to write the database reference over and over again, all we'd have to do is call this function. What it will return is a database reference. It is going to be nullable though, so make sure you have the question mark. Inside that, all we're going to do is return Firebase Database .getInstance .reference .child. Child is going to be called cake, and that's all you got to do for that function. Now we're going to do the main bit of code for the data listener for the reading, which is going to be inside its init. So init, and if the value that if the data listener is not equal to null, then what we're going to do is we're going to call it get database ref, and we're going to check to make sure that the database ref is not null. And if it isn't null, then we're going to remove the event listener of value data listener. Okay. After we've done that, we're then going to set value data listener to be null. And then we're going to do a bit of logging. So log.i cake model. I'll enter so maybe so the login works. And we're going to say data init line 26. Okay. Now what we're going to do is set up the data listener. So value data listener equal object value event listener. So say lambda. What I'm going to do, as you can see, it's got red as a red squiggly underline, so that's a compiler error. What we're going to do is to fix that, we're going to click it, and you can notice that we now have a red light bulb with a exclamation mark on it. I'm going to click that, and we're going to implement the methods. So it needs to run these. It needs to have these methods in order for it to function. So we're going to click OK. So we have on cancelled, implement methods, on data change. Okay, so now we're going to get rid of this template code inside the on data change. Inside the on data change, we're going to have a try catch. Exception e.print stack trace, so we know if anything wrong happens. Log.i inside the try cake model. Missed out a capital letter. Okay. And the message we're going to have inside this log is data updated line 29. So what's going to happen is that this code will run every single time there is a change to that specific node in the database. So this is a live update listener. The advantage of using these is that anytime anything changes inside that on that listener, it will actually be reflected in the app. So an example where that would be seen is that if you are writing an instant messaging app, you can use that in order to send instant messages. Because you would write a message to the database, and then anyone else that is listening on that node will then receive that message instantly. So after we've done the log, we're going to create a read-only variable called data, which is of type array list, which is made up of cake, and it's going to equal array list. Now we're going to check to see if, so before we go any further, we're just going to rename P0 to data snapshot. Makes it a little bit easier if you rename the template variable names to your own variable names. It just makes it easier going forward. So we're going to check to see if data snapshot is not equal to null. So we have got data. Right, and then we're going to then iterate through all the data that we've received. So for snapshot of type data snapshot in data snapshot dot children. I'm going to have another try catch. Oops, there we go. And colon exception. Dot print stack trace, and then inside the try we're going to do data dot add cake. So we're going to add a new cake object, passing in snapshot to that cake. Okay. After the for loop, we're then going to do m underscore cake list will be equal to data. So after we've iterated through all of the data we've received from the database, we're then going to update the cache, and then log the fact that we've updated it. So cake model data updated. There are so cake list. The dot size in the cache. There are X entries in the cache. The last thing we're going to be doing in the on data changed is we're going to set changed and notify observers. So that's the on data change written. Now we're going to go into the on cancelled, remove the template code. And all we're going to do is type in if p0 is not equal to null. We're going to log.i cake model line 51 data update cancelled. And we're going to then print out the error by going err is equal to, and we're going to do dollar curly braces p0 dot message. Okay. Right, and then all we're going to, and then the last thing we're going to do is outside of the value. So after we've done the value event listener, we've done setting it up. We're going to go m underscore get database ref dot question mark dot add value event listener, pass in the value event listener. And that is then technically our model done. The only thing we've got to do now is make it so that we can access the cache outside of the model. Because right now, as you can see, we've set it to private. Now, this is almost always you need to make sure you set variables to private. And what you would actually do is you would then use getters and setters functions in order to actually set them. It is a much safer way of doing it than rather than just setting them as public, because if they're public, then anything can change it. So what we're going to do is outside of the init, so outside of this bracket here, what we're going to do is function get data. It's going to return an array list of type cake. However, it could be null. It's going to very simply just return cake list. And with that, that's our data model done.
Okay, so that's it for part 1. In this video we covered setting up a Firebase database, setting up an app to be able to communicate with said Firebase database, creating a data model to retrieve and parse data retrieved from the database, and create a data object to parse the data received. In the second part we'll be looking at creating the UI for the app. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.